Okay, so we're back after about 3 to 4 minutes of par baking pizza crust. So I'm going to pull it off the tray right here. It's got some rigidity to it. It's still quite hot, so be careful. But you'll see that it's got these little brown spots on it. It's starting to become crispy on the edges. And this is the secret to a delicious frozen pizza. So when you are giving yourself a head start on your crispiness, that means it makes it pretty much foolproof on the back end after you freeze the pizza or when you go to put the pizza back in the oven. So back to our pastry brushes, we're going to take our pizza sauce here, and this is also something that's really nice about the pastry brush is that you have a nice even spread on these crusts. Now, because it's a thin crust pizza, I do like a really thin margin around the edges. I'm not going to use a whole lot of sauce today because I want it to retain that crispiness. So for a small to medium sized pizza like the one we're making, we'll use about 1/4 cup or less of that pizza sauce and just spread it around evenly. Then we're going to take some mozzarella cheese here, and again we're going to spread it relatively thinly. You'd be surprised by once you actually start baking these pizzas, you'll see how far a little bit of cheese can go. So we're going to spread this all around. Now, if you're trying to get a perfect edge, what you can do is use your hand to just keep the crust on the edge from getting cheesy, and that way it makes it look really nice when it's done, but you still have kind of a rough edge, but with a nice crispy crust. So this is also a place where you can do a pesto. I like a kale pesto or a basil pesto if that's in season, and you mix that in with a lesser amount of your tomato-based sauce. So we have our cheese base here, and you can see it's relatively light. We'll make sure the edges are filled in, the corners here. And then what I have is some finely chopped kale. Now this is my favorite version of this pizza. I love to do really finely chopped kale. You can go even finer than this, and you'll find that it preserves really well in the freezer. So if you are freezing these pizzas fully dressed, this kale is the only green that I found will actually stay intact and edible and really crispy once you throw it in the oven. If you have something that's a little softer, you might want to turn that into a pesto. So like a basil or an arugula. So you're going to spread it really evenly. And then I've got some chopped onion here that I'm going to throw on top. So again, you want to make sure that that onion gets all the way around to the edges. And we'll spread this around. So this is a vegetarian version, but you can freeze it with finely diced sausage or pepperoni or whatever variety you're looking at topping it with. Okay, so we have our fully dressed pizza. This is where you stop if you're freezing it. What you'll do is you'll throw it in the freezer for about 30 minutes, and if you have a bunch of other junk in the freezer, you can cover it with a piece of wax paper so that nothing falls on it, or so you can stack it. Let it freeze until it's pretty frozen, pull it out, then vacuum seal it. And what you'll find is that the tighter you vacuum seal it, the less chance you have of getting any sort of freezer burn or frost on it. However, as you're experimenting with this, a little freezer burn is not going to hurt you. It burns off really fast, and it really actually doesn't affect the quality of the pizza at the end of the day, but it is nice to avoid. So freeze the pizza 30 minutes and then seal it tightly with a vacuum sealer. It'll last for months in your freezer, and then you just pop it out and bake it for the remaining 10 to 12 minutes. Now with this pizza, we're going to throw it back in the oven, and so what I'm going to do before I do that is actually the last special ingredient. So we're going to take a little bit of sea salt here and just finely sprinkle it on top. Now if you're using something like a basil pesto that comes salted, or any kind of ingredient like sausage or pepperoni that has salt in it, you're going to want to go really light on the salts. But with our pizza today, we've got this really fine salt, so that way when you're taking the pizza out of the oven, every bite is going to have perfect little salty bit on top. Little burst of flavor that makes it really delicious and takes it all the way. So we're going to stick this back on our baking sheet. You can use the same baking sheet, you don't have to oil it. 10 to 12 minutes, when we pull it out, it's going to be beautiful and crispy. So this is the end of our cooking session, and I hope that this is informative and helpful to you as you make an easy weeknight pizza. You can also make your meals for the week really easily this way, or for your family, and I hope it brings you a lot of joy to your table. Thank you.